I love her very much. All right, with that, I will call this meeting of the Downtown Development Authority Board to order. We are expecting at least one more member to arrive momentarily, but because we have a pretty full agenda, I'd like to go ahead and get started. So I'll ask Sandra to please record the attendance. If you haven't had a chance to review the agenda for tonight's meeting, please take a moment to do so, and then I will entertain a motion to approve that agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on. Approve the minutes of the April 19, 2022 meeting. Now, Sandra, do we need to make separate motions for approval of the minutes in the packet and the minutes from the closed session, or are they all approved together?
They can all be approved together.
Okay, so Sandra has passed out to you the minutes from the closed session last month, and within your packets, you have minutes from the open session here. So please take a few minutes to review that. And then unless someone has questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. And these are the minutes from the April 19 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve if people have enough time.
I'll second that motion.
Any questions or comments before I call the vote? All right, all in favor of approving minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those of you who have the minutes from the closed session, let's pass them back to Sandra when you're finished. Thank you very much. All right, Article 4, acknowledge visitors wishing to speak regarding any agenda or non-agenda items. So we have a few presentations scheduled for today, but I'll ask if there's anyone else in our audience, either live or virtually, who would like to make any comments at this time. Anyone? No? All right, hearing none, let's move on to Article 5, an update regarding the strategic plan process. We're so happy you could join us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Chris should be here, but
Sorry, I
Sure.
moved a little too quickly through the beginning part of the agenda.
it's not a problem. I'm sure he'll be here any second. So before you, we put together a document that includes the draft tasks and priorities for the strategic plan process. We went over this with the advisory committee last week, Friday. And then since then have made a couple changes based on their feedback and advice. And then that revised version is what you see before you. So I apologize, you didn't get a ton of time to review this ahead of time because that meeting just occurred on Friday. So of course, after this meeting, feel free to go through and read this at your leisure and reach out to us if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. So what we did do to try to streamline this discussion and make things easier is that I did highlight everything in this document that pertains to the DDA in yellow. So that way we can kind of like pull out important pieces and then kind of have a discussion on what you guys think of that. So this is essentially a synopsis of what we heard from our couple meetings with this group, what we heard from the public pertaining to the downtown village development, and then a couple other odds and ends that are kind of more geared towards like township organization and processes and things like that. So after this, I'll just kind of briefly go over the process and then we can kind of dive into this document a little bit more. So this is just the first draft of what we put together based on all of the feedback that we heard from all of these groups, all these focus groups that you guys know that we've been doing for the last couple months. So this is not a finalized document by any means. This is just the first draft of what we heard. And then basically what we're doing is we have a meeting with you guys tonight, and then we have a joint meeting with Planning Commission and Township Board. And I believe you guys were also sent an invitation for that as well on the 25th of next week. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I do not recall receiving that invitation.
Well, it is a public meeting, so you guys are more than welcome. I apologize if I spoke out of turn on that one. But that is in this room on the 25th with Township Board and Planning Commission to go over the same exact document that you see before you. So basically, once we get our feedback from Township staff and all of our applicable boards and commissions, we'll revise this document, and then it'll go into our graphics team. And our graphics team are going to put together a really nice looking, highly visual graphic document that will be less of a wall of words like this is. So then that will kind of be more toward what our final product is going to look like. So the final deliverable will look similar to this, but we're hoping that it'll be organized differently based on priorities, based on timeframes, based on each individual group, and so forth. So it'll be a more refined and visual document that essentially contains this information.
Can I ask one clarification question?
Sure.
What time is is it just part of the regular township board meeting at 7
Yep.
on the 25th? Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
If I hear otherwise, I can let Sandra know, and then she'll let you guys know too.
That would be terrific. Thank you.
Yep. So we are also in the process of developing a second community survey, which essentially is a truncated version of this document that we're going to send back out to the community to essentially validate our goals and priorities and tasks that we have outlined through our public engagement process. So we're going to have the public tell us, yes, these are our high priorities. This is how we want to rank them, and so forth. And then from that point, once this is all finalized and prioritized, then we'll kind of move toward the adoption process, likely summer, perhaps early fall at the very latest. But that's kind of how we're seeing the timeline move forward a little bit. So then as far as this document before you, what pertains to the DDA and the things that we pulled out from our extensive public engagement that we've done thus far, I'll just start on page 1. Anyone feel free to stop me if you have questions or comments. We can keep this free flowing. So don't worry about it if you have any concerns or as we move forward. So one of the first things that we picked out that kind of falls under the Parks and Trails category is the creating the central gathering place for the township. This is something, as you guys know, has come up time and time again over the last, however many years, and the community, as you guys know, have also identified this as a high priority item as well. So this particular item and this particular action item does involve the DDA in ways of planning or project implementation or funding opportunities, public-private partnerships, things like that. So we've outlined that as a large priority for the Parks and Trails specifically. And then we kind of outlined, when this exactly should be initiated, excuse me, and then what those primary responsible entities are. So essentially, what partnerships will need to occur within the township organization to get this project off the ground. So the first is, we are suggesting to create a subcommittee that has representation from each group. You guys, Township Board, Parks Committee, Pathways Committee, all of those folks kind of sit down in a room to develop what this gathering space consensus vision looks like. And then presenting that to the public to get feedback from, perhaps in a public meeting or whatever that may look like. And then moving forward with that, the tasks from that point forward, which is to be, working with perhaps a hired landscape architect or somebody of that nature to kind of, put together renderings to make this vision into reality, and then implementing that consensus vision. So, we're looking at perhaps, within the next 3 to 4, perhaps 5 years of, when this central gathering place will really take off the ground and be implemented. Does anyone have comments on this before?
Yeah, so to hear that right, and from looking at the outline here, so no shovel to dirt for potential 5 years based on the tasks that are listed here.
So I suppose in this context, implement consensus for task 2.4. I suppose that could mean, actually we're doing work on this, or that could mean, you're getting in the steps, you're putting funding in place, you're, lining all your ducks in a row to get this implementation off the ground, if that makes sense.
Just specific to that question, it could be as early as 3 or as late as 5.
Does that not seem realistic? Do you think?
No, I just want, I guess, that clarification,
Sure.
and then, you know, my follow-up question is probably more towards once we see all the different priorities. You know, so as they're outlined, I see, you know, parks and trails, land use and economic. Those that are in the red there, village characteristics, preservation and transportation and safety. Everybody's gonna have their, you know, this is the first thing that we should do kind of
Right.
thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's, and there's a lot of things here.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to, I guess, wrap my head around that aspect of, okay, now we've got these, whatever, 15, 20 different priorities.
How do we rank them?
How do we get it? So as a township, we don't continue to tell our community that gathering space, we've got it.
Mhm.
5 years down the road, they, you know, again, finally say, I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
Right.
I'm just saying that we've said things in the past too.
Mhm.
And people are like, so I thought we've been, like you said, we've been talking about a gathering space for a decade almost,
Right,
you know.
right.
and that's all. I just.
Yeah, no, and
how
that
we're
makes
gonna
sense.
Get down to physically doing
Are
something.
you talking about the need for a Gantt type of chart which says this is a step that'll be taken on this date?
Well, no, I think that's what they're playing out here, but
But-
there's just a
but
lot of
there's-
things going on.
But there's a lot of words in a lot of different pieces of paper versus having a chart where you say, these are all the words and these are projected dates.
Right, I understand, yeah.
So
And
So
I'm
I
curious
apologize for
about
interrupting.
whether the survey will help
That was gonna be my point.
prioritize.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so when this goes back to the community will help tell us and suss out, this is our top priority as the community, this is our second priority. So this is organized right now, more so like in time frame wise,
Yeah.
but that could be a rearranged based on what the community tells us is most important to them.
Sure.
Good.
Okay.
and a couple other thoughts. One is that this particular thing, gathering place idea is. Pardon my hands are full. The gathering place idea is one where this process has not gotten us a lot of specificity.
Right.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it means that we have an extra step in there where we have to develop, okay, where is this gonna go? And what does it look like?
Yeah, how do you define
That one
gathering
we didn't,
space?
because this process hasn't gotten us there. Even somewhat in some other areas, it has gotten us a step further or two steps. further, right? The other thing is that when we do the final version of this, we're gonna have it laid out in this format, but also in a timeline format, right? Like you were talking about, sir. And also in a by entity format. So you can switch to the DDA page and this is what you're supposed to be doing. So obviously for now, it's just in the one layout.
The having parks, there is probably 98% of the population says, love parks, like to use them. The question I have is, what is the usage rates of the parks that we have right now? Because how many times in business, oh, this feels like we need to do this. Well, give me some examples and numbers. And a lot of times when you look at the numbers, it's not necessarily needing new parks. Do we need to revitalize the parks we have or to repurpose our parks? So that's, I question, because if you do a survey, I would say everybody, oh, let's have parks. It's great for the community. I agree with that entirely. But do we need really more parks or do we just need to reevaluate what we have?
I think that will be will end up being part of the gathering place discussion because for a couple of reasons. One is that with it, when you're talking about creating a community gathering place, it doesn't just happen, right? You can make the most beautiful place to hang out in the world. No one will go there if there's not a reason to go there. So you have to program it and locate it near other things that people want to go to. So that goes directly to your point. And the other question is this gathering place a brand new park, or is it a park we already have that just needs to be upgraded? So both those questions need to be answered in what we have down as task 2.1, right? But I think you're absolutely right.
And if I may also add to, the township is in the middle of updating their 5-year parks and recreation master plan. So I think that I know that the Parks Committee has also done a public engagement effort to kind of figure out what those goals and priorities are as well. So this is designed to work in conjunction with that document as well. So that document will have more of like, we need to do this, 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 this. These are the specific upgrades at this location and so forth.
I think one question I do have, kind of springboarding off of a number of people's comments, is when we're looking at this document, should we look at it through the lens of it has not gone through a fine tooth comb on constraints on resources of how many things we can manage, nor has it gone through a fine tooth comb on budget of what we can go after. This is still at 30,000 feet of, this is what people have all said, this is the reality of what we think the timing is. Is that a fair statement, or you guys have gone deeper than that?
Well, I think it may be in between, because fine tooth comb, yeah, we haven't, and we haven't done we haven't laid it out in, say, timeline form yet. So we haven't said, oh geez, that's a lot the first year. We haven't kind of done that. But with each one, we've tried to say, what is a realistic time frame for this? And also, what can realistically be done? We don't have budget figures in front of us, at least not yet on this, but we do have some idea of the township's capacity, right, in terms of staff, in terms of appointed officials and elected officials and that kind of thing. So that's why, and this is a good example, some of these are incremental, and each of the tasks builds on the next. So yeah, that we will have to cross-check against some things like that. And that's also why there's ranges too, right? It's not in the budget this year, but maybe next, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Thanks.
And that will also likely be feedback that we're getting from the township board that I'm sure will come up at some point of, this is the numbers that, or, these are the numbers we're working with, and we may have to shuffle things around a bit. So moving forward, it looks like the next highlighted portion that pertains specifically to the DDA is on page 7 at the bottom. And this is in the category of land use and economic development. So this was something that came up rather recently, and we wanted to get your feedback on this as well, because oftentimes the DDA is heavily involved in marketing and promotional activities and updating social media sites and working with developers for available properties and things like that. So this is priority 8 that we've identified through this category, is updating the township's brand as needed, or as we move through this process, perhaps the township may find that their current branding is not really reflecting these new goals and priorities that we have, especially with the 2018 master plan that was done recently. So updating this brand could include logos, website updates, social media presence, marketing promotional activities, marketing promotional materials, and then like I said, to ensure that the brand is accurately reflecting, what the township sees as their goals in the future, and that all of these things are kind of working together appropriately.
Would that be applicable to the township as a whole? Or are you also thinking that this would encapsulate separate branding for the DDA as well? Because the DDA went through a branding push. Now I can't remember how many years. It could have been 5 years ago. I don't know. Everything runs together.
I think it was
I think it was only a
2018.
couple of years
It
ago.
was pre-pandemic, which was 2 years ago. So
It's been
I
quite a while.
saw, I was actually looking at your guys' website earlier today, and I think it said that was either 2017 or 18.
okay,
All right.
that
Yeah.
seems right. So is it the thought of rolling out consistent branding through the township and the DDA, or is that what's the, or has that scope not yet been determined?
The latter.
Okay, that's fine.
So I think
Yeah.
that's going to be part of this discussion of, is this a township wide overhaul, or perhaps enhancement or re-energizing, or is this, we want to specifically focus on the DDA and their activities over here, and then the township and their activities over here.
Village character and development, and thank you for not highlighting all the pages and pages of this.
Yeah, I figured that would look very jarring. So of course, the next several pages are very pertinent to what you guys are going to be, what we've identified as your largest tasks and priorities over the next 5 years. Priority one, of course, you'll see this priority pop up again within all of these categories is populating boards and commissions that are representative of the diversity of the township. That came up in particular with the planning commission because they found that they didn't have representation on the commission of people who lived, was it east of Buttrick? Yeah, that they were trying to get representation from. So when we spoke to the advisory committee is like, we should make sure that we are being mindful of this across the board. So that's where that comes from. Priority number two, this is going to be a big one. And of course, has been discussed time and time again, but establishing that official boundary for the upper and lower village district. And what that will look like, what parcels that incorporates. And then, of course, updating any relevant documents that pertain to that particular item. Priority three is updating your DDA and TIF plan, which I think from what I saw was last completed in 2011.
Is it 11 or 14?
We
11.
amended it in 14, but
Right.
11,
Oh,
yeah.
amendment. Okay. So that will be a key component also of your guys' activities moving forward, is making sure that we have a definitive project list. We have our phases, we have our actual budget for these things, and then making sure that that's all in compliance with Act 57 of 2018. 18. Yeah, I look at it like almost every day, and I don't know why I was like, is it 8? So from that, and then from that point, and one of those major projects that are identified in the DDA and TIF plan is to develop upper and lower village sub-area plans. So then this kind of outlines a couple bullet points of what those plans may look like to address some major key issues that, of course, have come up time and time again during our discussions with you guys of, streetscapes and design programs, enhancements, build out designs, architectural review boards, gateway locations, pedestrian enhancements, crosswalks, all that stuff. So that will kind of be outlined within those sub area plans. And then for anyone who's having problems following along, I'm at the top of page 9. And then, of course, from that point, kind of branching off of that is developing a 28th Street corridor plan addressing several issues. Of course, the ones that keep coming up: pedestrian safety, crosswalks, site design, zoning recommendations, and all that good stuff.
So is it the thought that that task would include an update to the complete streets plan, or is this something separate? Like how does it overlap, or does it encompass? Or to be determined?
Well, I think it overlaps because we're more specifically geographically focused. Right?
Okay.
So we're looking specifically at Cascade Road, 28th Street, Old 28th Street, right? And how to make them, how to implement complete streets in those specific corridors.
Well, and it may be, depending on where we end up with the corridor plan, that the complete streets plan needs to be updated accordingly. Although I don't know. We'll cross that bridge as it approaches.
Yeah, and you'll see too that because this strategic plan, of course, is short term, that a lot of these tasks and priorities are just going to be laying the foundation for future implementation projects. So it's going to be creating your plans and setting aside budgets and, those kind of important administrative things that will need to occur first before A, B, and C can happen after that. So then priority 4 is, of course, working to implement those upper and lower village sub-area plans, and then the 20th Street corridor plan. And that implementation may look like, small baby steps within the next 5 years, 5+ years or something like that. So those sub-area plans will also include implementation measures, and then so there'll be kind of a roadmap laid out there. Yeah.
What does the RFP stand for?
Request for proposals.
Oh.
So we can definitely write that out. But the idea behind that is that if we're looking at the Thornapple Center as a potential hub of the village, and we may have to focus on that, given the road commission's attitude about Cascade Road, we're going to need a development. And if we could put together a package that says the DDA, along with the current owners of this site, are looking for someone to come in and invest with the idea of creating a village center that, you know, the developer would then own as an income property, buy from the current owners or something of that nature. This is what we're offering. So almost like a more detailed real estate list. Not only we want to sell this, but we're going to do this with you after. So that would be really cool.
And then, of course, a key component of that implementation piece is going to look like partnerships with the road commission and what are our opportunities that we can explore, what are our options, and what constraints are we working within to achieve this vision that we come up with through sub-area plan process and other processes. Let's see, for priority 5, I'm at the top of page 10. Identify and establish opportunities for public and private partnerships. So of course, this has also come up time and time again, and this will be something that will be very important for project implementation to identify key funding sources that, you know, and partnership opportunities that you guys can work together with private sector organizations or individuals for getting things off the ground. So under that task is, you know, developing a definitive list of large area employers, developers, philanthropists, local businesses, and other similar organizations that may be interested in establishing partnerships with you guys. I've seen many communities do this in the past, and it seems to be a really effective tool. I've seen communities just send out a letter to people just saying, hey, we want to do this project, who's interested? So, you know, just kind of establishing that first line of communication with key targeted groups that can really go a long way. And then, of course, grant opportunities too through state organizations and federal organizations. Oh, party 6, enhancing local community spirit, such as various community events, festivals, business showcases, and other things that may be going on that are identified throughout the process. We met with our business community at the end of last month, and they seemed really interested in the idea of working together for different business showcases and assisting and sponsoring local events and stuff like that to also get their name out there too. And then priority 7, you'll also see pop up a lot throughout this document, the ensuring sufficient resources such as staffing, financial and organizational to assist with efficient project implementation. So that's another one that kind of goes across the board of, you know, we want to make sure that we're being mindful that this is logical and reasonable for each group to have the resources they need to make things happen. The next and final section of the document that pertains to you guys, I'm at the bottom of page 11. The next highlighted section here is under transportation and safety. The first of which pertains to road safety and streetscapes in the Cascade Village area. Of course, again, this has been a huge topic of discussion, and how do we implement safety measures within that area to achieve the vision that we're looking at for this village and what that may look like. So those tasks really include, you know, continuing these partnerships with the road commission to determine what those applicable safety aspects are, or develop those alternatives that, you know, maybe a common middle ground for getting things done and or achieving the vision that you would like to see. The next of which, working with engineering or planning firm to create a priority list and tentative schedule of road improvements that will need to take place in order to achieve your vision. So those engineers or whoever that you end up working with will be able to really dive into the nitty gritty of that and say, you know, here are our available options that make sense, and you know, corroborate that with what the road commission is able to take care of.
That could be a good job for your new township engineer once you hire that person. And also goes to the budgeting question.
And then, yes, the last one is the bus, which is I'm at the last page on page 13, the highlighted section there. So we've discussed this at great lengths with the advisory committee as well on what does the future of that of the rapid and that transportation system look like. So we kind of came up with the idea, and the advisory committee came up with the idea of potentially partnering with the Rapid and a private transportation company to replace Route 29 with a more flexible and efficient mode of transportation that can connect people to where they need to go. That also includes, the airport area and things like that, that are, important hubs that people need to find transportation. So that first task is basically looking like, what are these alternative transportation partnerships looking like? We'll have to narrow that down exactly of, what different organizations we can partner with, what businesses would be interested in maybe pitching in to get employees for their specific business to and from work to get to different locations. So there's quite a bit of organization that still needs to kind of flow through this particular priority. And then, of course, implementing that vision with the Rapid and potentially a private transportation company to enhance those transportation opportunities and make it more meaningful for residents and people who work here.
We understand this is pretty urgent because you guys are on short-term renewals with the Rapid right now. So this is even the 1 to 2 years we have here may be a little long, right? So it sounds like.
Well,
But I
we
think
actually,
there's-
and we,
yeah.
it actually might align pretty well with the next item on our agenda, which is a recommendation from the bus committee to explore this very issue over the course of the next year, I think we said. So that, well, we may actually be further along than the timeline you've got here.
Just take care of that for you.
Yeah.
Right, we're just check it off. It's already in
No,
progress.
It seems like a pretty, a big deal, but also potentially an opportunity to, rethink the way that service works while being committed to providing a service, right? And so I think it's pretty exciting. And I think there's some creative solutions here. But yeah, we need to jump on it. Right?
You may need to pick your brain about it if you have thoughts on it, because
I have all
Yeah.
sorts of crazy ideas and to see if we can get.
no ideas are crazy. Just throw
But
them
yeah,
all
we
out
talked
the
about this
window.
advisory committee. The advisory committee likes to delve into things in some depth sometimes. And we talked about there a lot. And I think there's some fun ideas if you can get the operators to see the vision, right?
Who is this advisory committee?
Oh,
Well, Michelle and Grace are on it.
4 of us are
member
here now.
from-
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, just a
Okay.
member from each
Just-
board.
all right.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've been meeting on Friday mornings, like a couple Fridays a month through the process and really diving into the details of this. But I was half joking because that committee is supposed to be, writing a strategic plan, but we start working on the tasks a lot just because of that's just the nature of these. Anyway, yeah, I think this is an important and exciting one.
Yeah, and anyone is also welcome to attend those. We meet in here the 2nd and 4th Friday of the month at 10 a.m. So.
Through the end of this process.
Yeah.
we'll be doing that.
Questions? Comments? This is really great. Thank you
Good.
very much.
Do you guys feel like this accurately reflects, where you see your priorities going in the short term and what we heard from the community? Is there anything, red
So-
flags?
No red flags. The only item that I would say is missing, although I don't know that missing is the right word, was we had talked about doing a strategic plan for our DDA. That may be something that we can handle through the TIF amendment. But, and it certainly can be something that we do on our own, even if it isn't part of that strategic planning process. But that's really the only thing that I noted was not included.
I mean, we could include the word strategic plan in the task that talks about the updated DDA and TIF plan and all those, the sub area plans that go into that. Plus, I know Michelle's actually already kind of gotten that process, at least the thought process underway, right?
Just want to make goals.
Right, well, and I think it fits nicely with the TIF plan because, whatever the DDA does has to be allowed by the TIF plan. So we really need to be exercising that intellectual energy at the same time. So making that small adjustment would
I
be
think
appropriate.
That I would see all this planning work that you guys are talking about being extremely implementation focused, such that the process is going to be as much about how as about what. which, you know, in some areas, there's a lot of what still to be cited, like the gathering place and things like that, but I think that it is almost, I would see this DDA plan you guys are gonna do as almost a strategic plan itself, because it's gonna be, like, we gotta get shovels in the ground. you know?
Right.
You know, one thing on the plan, you say to reach a consensus of location and associated programming. What comes first?
That's a good question, because it's, like we just talked about, or a few minutes ago, like, we get, people have to have a reason to come to this place, right? So, I think that they almost have to be determined concurrently, because we need to decide, like, all right, we're gonna have events. What events are we gonna have? What are the needs of those events? What is the best place to hold those events? Or is this gonna be more we want this thing to sort of draft off adjacent businesses? Well, now it needs to be near adjacent businesses. What businesses are those? Where are they gonna be located? So, that's how the programming informs the design.
I think you have to decide one or another first rather than simultaneously.
Okay.
Because because with a location, you're going to have limitations on possibly some of the events. But if you say this is going to be more events driven, then you're going to have to say, okay, what spaces are available for the events that we need?
Yes, that's true.
So would you recommend that task be reworded to clarify that?
I would,
Okay.
that's my suggestion. But
On programming and then location. Defining what we need out of a guide. That would be my first thought.
and I agree with that, is what does the community want in the programming?
I don't want to always compare you guys to Ada, but I keep picturing the riverfront park they have with the little red schoolhouse in it. Right, and the fact that because that place sells ice cream and has a playground, while also having like an amphitheater and just open grass and a riverfront, that people just go there on hot days or on the first nice day of spring. Like, it's a place people go. If that, so I don't know if that's the vision, but if that's a vision, like how do we get this to be the place people go on the first night's day of spring? Or is it the place where we can hold big festivals, right? Or is it something else? So yeah, I think programming comes first.
So without overcomplicating things here, I always overcomplicate things. So the item for updating the TIF plan is in the section regarding village character and development. I mean, but the thought is probably that it extends to the 28th Street corridor and to some of the other. So I don't know that it's necessary to add to that, but we may want to clarify that it does relate to those other priorities as well, or those other topics as well.
So the 28th Street corridor plan is included in that, but obviously the header on that is.
Yeah, that's, I know. And again, I'm sure it'll look different when it's all finalized, but I don't want someone 5 years from now to say, but that you weren't supposed to do this with the TIF plan.
And the only other thing that I've been thinking about as we're talking, especially this gathering place, is that, this project plan that the library has going on has a component that's very similar to a gathering space. And, is there overlap there? Does that become the solution to this? How does that all mesh together so that we make sure that we're not going in multiple directions at the same time?
I totally agree. Because I think that part of what the library is doing is what the public would have expected us to be doing as the community gathering space.
I would agree.
And so maybe it's something that can be, well, if it's either going to need to be the community gathering space, or it's need to be reoriented to be something else, right?
Right.
Right.
It also needs to fit within the overall vision for this entire campus and its surroundings, which I think has more potential than just a community.
Right.
gathering.
And that's what they've actually are exploring of what those other components are for the larger view of this campus.
We should add something about the library then.
Right. I think it's imperative that we remain in close communication about what the plans are and where they're going. And they've brought the DDA up to speed on the plan, and it's everybody thinks that it's great, and but it's going to be staged such that it will align with some of the development that'll be in the strategic plan.
I agree, because what a smack in the face if the Friends of the Library does something here and we say, you know what, that's not enough. We want to
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
we want to
Mhm.
do a
That's-
bigger, better thing over here that, yeah.
That is not.
Just
No,
a
that's not who we-
unneeded
who we need to be
Resources
at all.
and,
Consensus.
Yep.
Exactly.
Thank
Other
you.
questions or comments? All right, excellent. Thank you so much. I don't know that we'll have, we shouldn't anticipate a final report by our June meeting, should we? It seems like if you're going to be doing the surveys, it might be a little bit farther out.
Yeah, I believe we are planning to have the survey open through July 4th, I believe was the plan. And then from that point, we will refine this. And then, of course, that joint meeting that we have next week as well.
So I'm not aware of a joint meeting that was formally intended to have the DDA involved with the other boards and commissions. Is that something that's also in the pipeline, or is that not something that's contemplated?
I may have
happen?
misspoke and I apologize about that. I thought somebody mentioned last week that the DDA was invited.
That was me.
Oh, was
because
that you?
I thought we were supposed to have a joint meeting.
We were.
We were,
but
but
we-
nothing's
but I don't, I'm pretty confident that we didn't get invited to the Wednesday. I mean, we should just all plan to go if we can, sorry, on a week's notice. Yay.
Unless I missed it. I thought I heard about it for the first time when you, like last week.
Well, for some reason, I mean, we had talked about the fact that we would have a joint meeting,
Right.
and maybe I just.
No, we did talk about
did
it.
talk about it.
Assumption
No, we
and said,
talked about
oh,
having it,
there's
but-
the joint meeting on the
It's a-
20th.
It's a consistent comment at each DDA
Yeah,
meeting is to have a
right,
joint meeting. I
right.
think we'll find it in the notes. I think we just
Right.
need to set the date and
Right.
let's do it.
So the board and the planning commission are getting together and the parks.
No, I don't think so.
So-
All right, so I think.
as a
I
follow-up
think everyone
item-
should be there, but obviously you only have 1
Well,
week notice and it's
right.
kind of important. so.
Can we, as a follow-up item,
Yes.
can we get an email and perhaps email Sandra about the information for that meeting? You know,
Mhm.
it seems,
Would-
yeah, I mean,
makes
I don't
sense.
know. I can't speak for the board about whether everybody will be able to attend on a week's notice, but
Put it on
Well,
my
and
calendar,
maybe-
'cause
I think it's important though that we have that joint meeting.
That would
Maybe
make ourselves
we can
invited.
schedule.
I think I'm
Yeah,
doing that.
exactly. You're
Yeah.
invited.
And perhaps we can schedule even just another one to make sure that everybody's involved and make sure that the Parks Committee is also aware of what's
Yeah.
happening.
Absolutely.
Something else that I'm thinking through since Scott just mentioned that you guys have been trying to get one on the books for a long time. Is that something that should go in the strategic plan of maybe scheduling a regular schedule to meet with the township board and meet with other township organizations
Oh,
on a regular
absolutely.
basis?
And we've been doing it on kind of an ad hoc basis every once and again.
Okay.
You know, pre-pandemic times. I think it's really helpful to bring everybody together, just, you know, so we can make sure that we have that consensus and we can suss out the areas where we might be in conflict and for
maybe we-
communication.
Yeah, and maybe we just say that, you know, to your point, Danielle, it's in this, that it's maybe a minimum requirement, like twice a year or whatever we decide that is.
Yeah.
Twice a
that
year would
it's
be a
in
lot
there.
more than, that'd make a big help, right?
I think
I think so. Yeah.
I think it has to be set in stone or else we'll just keep talking
Right.
about it.
That's fair.
Yes.
And so I think if it's like, we have to meet twice a year, we
Yeah.
can reserve that right of saying it makes sense to move the date that we meet to this date
Right.
because of the topics.
Right.
Agreed.
Every year in March and October.
I wouldn't even
Something like
I don't know that I'd even
We won't put it
specify.
in here, but I'm
I
saying
would
Yeah.
just
that would,
say.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
would
how-
make sense. And it's like, okay, eventually gonna happen. It comes
Right.
around to that
We
date.
have
Well,
a
and that's like
minimum
our-
number
You have
of
the-
times,
Our
yeah.
informational.
Our
meeting.
informational meeting, we're required to have it twice a year.
Mhm.
And so we just
Yeah.
decide when it fits best
Right.
and
Yeah. We get all the boards and commissions together and have the meeting of meetings.
yes,
Mhm.
Stuff like
the
that.
meeting of meetings.
Yep, and that would also be a great opportunity for the resource discussion too, you know?
Yes.
Absolutely. There are some communities that do that at either the beginning or end of every fiscal year. So it is done. It just needs to be a habit of doing.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you.
guys. Thank
Appreciate
you for
your work.
having us. We're available if anyone has any questions or comments, of course, feel free to reach out.
Thanks much.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, moving on then to Article 6, discuss and consider the rapid bus contract. So this actually dovetails nicely with what we were just discussing. And you should have received in your packet a memorandum that is styled from Sandra, but it was drafted by committee, by the bus committee, after we met and determined that we needed some additional in-depth analysis of our transportation options. So I'll hand it over to you, Sandra. Thank you.
Thank you. So just a little background, early 2021, the Township Board formally decided to no longer fund or support the rapid bus service along 28th Street. Before that time, the Township Board as well as the DDA shared the expense of that bus service. And so the Township Board opted to have the DDA provide that service at their full financial expense. So on June 15th, I know there's a lot of dates and years thrown around here, but on June 15th of 2021, the DDA unanimously decided to renew the contract, providing that service along 28th Street. And that contract was good through May 9 of 2022. Again, DDA paid for that service. Earlier this year, 2022, the bus committee got together and surveyed the businesses located in the district to gauge their need for this service and use of the service. So there are some excerpts from that survey included in the packet tonight. And then at the March 15th DDA meeting a couple months ago, the board did approve extending that bus contract along 28th Street only through August 29, 2022. So that kind of brings us up to current. So there is another contract that's up for renewal. It is a one-year term that would be effective August 29, 2022 through August 28, 2023. That proposed contract is in your packet tonight. It has been forwarded to the attorney for their review and comment. And we were set to vote on that tonight at this meeting with the recommendation that the DDA renew that contract with the Rapid, providing that service along 28th Street. It's Route 29 is what they call it, until August 28, 2023.
Recommendation from whom, Sandra?
The bus committee. With subject to the approval of the final language being reviewed and approved by the township attorney. And so the thought on that was this would allow, by approving this service for that 1 year, it would allow the DDA, the bus committee, some stakeholders, if you will, to kind of do a deep dive into public transportation and survey local businesses, see what other potential options may be out there. And in the packet tonight in the memo is we kind of laid out the path for how that looks, what that looks like over the next 7-8 months before any type of contract renewal with the Rapid would become would need to be renewed again. So that's what's included tonight in the packet. Max, I believe, is on Zoom tonight. Should you have any questions for him? He's with the Rapid.
Thank you. And I want to extend some thanks to Scott, who put together the decision path and the memo that you're seeing in your packet. So we had some free strategic planning advice from a good business mind. And I think it's a good outline for where we need to go with this.
I think the other color I would add to is this is a fair bit, it has some polarizing points of view to it, the transportation or the transit. And so that's a known thing. The other thing that's known is we've kicked the can down the road a couple times with this. We're always up against a deadline to make the decision very quickly. It is known that transportation, through the survey and through some public comment, that there is a need for public transport, that it's important to those businesses based upon the survey and what have you. I think the key thing is making the best decision for the township in terms of the community, but also for the businesses that are here, and also recognizing that we're living in a very fluid world right now where gas is above $4 a gallon, inflation is high, and we're still dealing with COVID. So there's a lot of factors in how what those impacts are going to be for transportation. So the thought is by taking that step back and looking at a lot of different options over this next year, we can make the best decision financially and for the best decision for the residents and businesses of the community that makes sense for us to move forward with a grander plan of everything else we have going on.
Well said. Steve, you have anything? You're on the bus committee as well.
Yeah, no, and I think to Scott's point, as we make this decision today, in regards by giving another year to look at some of those other alternatives, as McKenna the McKenna Group has identified that there are some out there. Because I'd hate to pull the plug on our local businesses with a 2-month notice, if that's the case, to say you're no longer going to have busing and you have to figure something out for your employees. So if I would think within 6 months, we're going to be able to identify if there's other alternatives. And I know that I was not at the last bus meeting, but I think Sandra or somebody had shared one of those other alternatives that I've been seeing around town too, the bus to work or something like that. So there are other things out there that I think we really need to explore, but because we are pushed so quickly, as Scott said, to make a decision, we've got to decide something here tonight. So
Right. And again, the decision here tonight is whether to extend the current bus contract through August of 2023, with the understanding that the bus committee is going to do a very deep dive into what the alternatives are and whether there's a more practicable solution that could serve the needs of both the residents and the businesses. Because as has been said, businesses have articulated that they need this service to be available so they can get their employees to work.
Wait, it was my understanding though, and I just learned this at the last bus committee meeting, that we have not, well, we never did in the past, but our township legal counsel hasn't looked at this contract or any of the ITP contracts. And township legal counsel needs to review contracts before the township enters into them. This doesn't start until end of August, so we have plenty of time. So I'm not comfortable approving this with the catch-all language of pending township councils. I don't think it hurts anything to just stop and have it should be standard operating procedure that our municipal council reviews all of our contracts. And I was surprised that it wasn't. And so I'm saying I don't want to vote on it tonight. No, I don't want to get enough. It's not till August 29th.
I think we have to approve it actually before Max is on the phone. I think we have to make the decision on it. If it's not today, it's by the June timeframe.
It is by the June time. And Max, can you tell us what that date is, please? That I know that it's a date in June, but I couldn't find my note identifying the date that the Rapid needed a decision from us.
Yeah. So that would be, actually, I think we could probably do July 1 would be the absolute latest. I think we usually tell folks probably mid-June, so June 15th would be ideal. Let me confirm that with my team, and then for now plan on June 15th, but we might be able to go a few weeks after that.
Okay.
I have a few comments about the actual language in the contract. Again, I'm not a municipal attorney, but just a few things. In Article 1, the recitals section, 2 and 3, whereas ITP has the capability of expanding its transit service, particularly service in the township area, and second part makes transit service available to both township residents. Not disagreeing with it, but personally as supervisor, I get so many complaints about the bus, and it is kind of a polar in its current form, and it is a polarizing issue, or at least it seems to be. Because it's unnecessary, to me, this kind of sounds like posturing, unnecessary. I would prefer that these are taken out.
If memory serves, and correct me if I'm wrong, Max, some of that needed to be included to hook into the Rapids funding. Am I recalling that correctly?
Yeah, there's some issues. We always try to be very clear about distinguishing this service from chartered service. So this really is, it really kind of distinguishing it from that charter service. So example of a charter service would be like if you were having a concert at a pavilion and then we ran service strictly to that, but only gave the service to select groups of individuals. It was not actually publicly available. I think this is simply just sort of setting the table of this contract of how we got here, that this is possible because there's an opportunity or a capability of expanding the service based on the existing services that we already had in place on the western segments of 28th Street. So it's
But
simply
it
saying that
is
it's
that
possible,
required?
it can happen.
I think it's obvious that 2 and 3, I just think it's unnecessary. And if it's to separate this service from being a charter service, why don't we just say this is not a charter service or whatever language? Because as supervisor, I hear this is such a, I don't want to, the rapid has been so, this has been one-sided and the township has always agreed to it under the rapid's terms. And it's just, if it doesn't serve a purpose, I say we take it out.
Grace, respectfully, I don't disagree that we should have township council look at this language. and
It should,
approve
that's a given.
It is a given. Now that that's the township's policy to review all contracts through legal counsel, absolutely. But your statement that this has always been one-sided and that we haven't had any view, we rewrote these recitals during the last go-round.
I thought we took a
With
couple
the-
out.
I believe we made revisions and we took some out. So to say that it's been completely one-sided is not exactly accurate. So I
Okay.
think that we can certainly have township council take a look and go through that process and wordsmith, but I don't want to represent that the Rapid has somehow railroaded this contract through.
No, I'm
because that
only
is
speaking
not
as-
correct.
I'm speaking as one member of the DDA. And in my opinion, the Rapid has set the terms. And 2 and 3, as supervisor who hears tons of public comments, I would prefer that those 2 are taken out. Unless there's a legal reason for it, but there's such obvious statements that really don't apply to the agreement.
Rick?
Number one is, first of all, we need to decide, are we going to accept it because if we as a group decide not to go with this contract, then what we're talking about is null and void.
We get that it's irrelevant, right? But if we're
So,
discussing.
but the thing is if we do vote for it, then we are in a position to say, have council review certain language from there, because if they're going to alter it dramatically, then we need to re-review it. But if it is some minor changes, then it is something, I don't think it needs to come back to this to the DDA.
I don't know if we're just not. Our legal counsel has to review the contracts. I don't know what, if he's gonna come back with major. or minor.
Oh, I agree with that.
So I'm just saying before we approve it, so I'm not quite,
Well, the thing
I
is,
don't know what he's gonna.
this is a proposal. And as a DDA, if we vote this down, why do we need to spend thousands of dollars to have an attorney review it?
Right, my only. So then what are we gonna, what do we vote on then?
Can
beforehand?
I make a before And I'm going to articulate this before I make it a motion, but I think that we could decide to renew the relationship with the Rapid to provide bus service along 28th Street until August 28th, 2023, pursuant to a contract that will be negotiated between council and the Rapid.
Because then you're essentially agreeing to it without the major term set. I don't think you can do that.
It's done all the time.
It's
What
not
are you
smart.
talking about?
This is not, so we're gonna agree to it, but we don't have it in right. I mean,
We're agreeing to pursue the relationship. If we don't end up agreeing to a contract, then there is no relationship. The relationship is subject to the contract with both parties have to agree to.
yeah, I think I'm just not understanding the,
Counselor, we're not attorneys. And it is a situation, this is conceptual. And we're voting on a conceptual idea.
this is a contract for services at a certain price.
I understand, but it is not our job as a group to we can read the contract and make comments on the contract and then hand it over to proper counsel for review.
Exactly.
I think your points are valid.
Right.
I'm not disagreeing with your comments.
Wait, but then are you essentially saying, so we are going to agree to enter into this contract and then we're gonna have our legal counsel review this terms? Because it seems like legal counsel should approve all of the terms, then we actually make the vote to enter into the contract, or am I just missing something?
Hang on. So we can articulate that it all depends on how we approve, what we move and what we approve, Grace. I mean, we could certainly, hypothetically, I'm not making this motion. We could certainly make a motion to approve the contract document as written. We could alternatively approve the contract document as may be revised in immaterial ways by council. I think what we should, as a group, approve tonight is not that, not the document itself, but agree to renew the relationship with the Rapid, subject to negotiation of a mutually acceptable contract negotiated by the Rapid and the Township, or the DDA's attorney.
So so to continue our relationship, do we have to, what does that mean?
I think that well, I'll make a proper motion, but to continue the Rapid providing bus service on Route 29 through August 28th, 2023.
But we're 2022. That's essentially agreeing to the terms in the contract before.
Oh, it's not.
That's a full year. Why would we do that when you just said we have until July?
But that's not the, do you have a quibble with that particular part of the
I
contract?
just think it's so backwards. So we're going to agree to continue a relationship. I mean, that's essentially saying we're agreeing to 2023 is the entire, that's the
Well,
length of the
you can
time.
continue to disagree, but I will sketch out a motion that clarifies that anything that we agree to anything that we approve tonight is going to be subject to review
Yeah.
and approval of an agreement by our council.
But why? Okay, this is, I guess we're getting into the weeds. It's not the end of the world.
Can I ask a clarification question on this?
Sure.
Because I'm not. So if we make this motion tonight, we agree to continue the relationship of providing bus service contingent upon the review of the contract. Does that mean if our legal counsel, the township's legal counsel reviews the contract and they say, there's some substantive things that need to be changed in this, whatever, so that it's in essence really changing that we can say, oh, well, then we're not going to agree. We're basically reneging or whatever.
Well, I think
based on what
I think
comes
that
out of
this,
that, right?
that's a real good point. And I think that the motion that I would articulate would clarify that the relationship is contingent on acceptance of a mutually agreeable contract, which means if there isn't a mutually agreeable contract,
Then it's
there's
null
no
and
deal.
void.
I agree. I just don't see, why don't we just make one motion in June when we've reviewed it instead of two? I mean, why are
Because
we
then-
pushing it along?
because then it's a last minute decision. Again, we're trying to start this process of planning out.
But we're talking about it right now. If anyone has questions or concerns, and then our legal counsel, if we need two motions instead of one, that's fine. I guess we're
But-
agreeing.
But if the legal counsel comes back with a number of comments, then we have one more DDA meeting to
Totally.
address those,
Right,
correct? Because
correct.
July 1st does not lead us to any decision. We won't meet to talk further about it. So to us, in principle, do we agree to proceed with legal reviewing it because we see the need for the upcoming year to maintain transportation as we make these decisions outlined in the document in the best interest for the township in the DDA? I think we're just, are we proceeding? Because if everyone here is voting that I'm against the bus service altogether, then there's no need for us to move forward with spending funds
True,
to
that's a good-
review the document.
That was-
Right.
If we don't follow these steps, we're literally at the 11th hour making a decision that affects a lot of people in the community. And that's a fair statement.
Yeah, and so now is the time to discuss questions, concerns about the ITP contract in tonight's agenda.
I would say,
I mean, not wordsmithing, but if you have, I suspect that you, because we've had this conversation before, I suspect that you have bigger issues.
No.
with-
I have a question about the
think-
language.
I think you got to break it out into two conversations then. Conversation one is in principle, the bus service. Independent of
There's
if there's
minimal
some language in the agreement that you may or may not agree with. Then I think there's a second step where you go, if there are material items in the contract that are showstoppers, as they are, we need to elevate those.
I have a question about the contract. It's a big one because it has to do with the price.
All right, go ahead. Max is still with us, I assume? Okay.
So it kind of all comes down to attachment A, I think. There's this page 3. Article 6, part 2 talks about adjusting rates annually. It seems kind of confusing and unnecessary because ultimately attachment A, and my question is, does this include paratransit? Because to me, the way it's written, it sounds like it doesn't. So I'm curious if that would be an additional cost or if the paratransit is included in that.
If
It
you
sounds
look
like
at,
a fixed route.
if you look at the second line under Article 3, responsibilities of the township, it says actual line haul and paratransit cost per hour. So that cost per hour, whether it's in fiscal year 22 or fiscal year 23, includes paratransit costs. And the note regarding the annual changes, that's where you see it in Article 3, is that cost per hour changes on an annual basis based on our operating expenses and the levels of funding from the Michigan Department of Transportation.
Right. So this $218,754 includes paratransit? Or
Correct,
would we be charged in it? Okay. It includes both?
correct, yes. And it always has in previous contracts as well.
Okay, thank you.
Having been in business for 7,000 years, unfortunately, I would never, ever agree to a contractual situation such as this without getting legal counsel.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
Because if you enter into such a litigious situation that it can be inconceivable whether we do it. Well, we need to have legal counsel. We put ourselves in the township into a very tenuous situation without having legal counsel. And quite frankly, we wouldn't be doing our job.
I'm seeing in other areas,
From a
other
business
areas of the
standpoint.
township where our lack of going to legal counsel has been expensive, costly, and unnecessarily causing conflict. So I appreciate, this probably hasn't been an issue, but to make it across the board consistent in all areas of the township is,
I think we're
And
all
that's
aligned on
called-
that.
That's called
Yeah.
out in with the
Right.
recommendation is
Exactly.
absolutely, it needs to be reviewed by
Yes.
legal before we blindly just say, let's go. It's definitely called out that way. And we're all in alignment.
Yeah, I agree. All contracts need to be reviewed, but at the same time is if we, as a DDA, do not agree that this service is needed, then we're wasting taxpayers' dollars.
Correct.
And so, Counselor, I've not disagreed with anything that you have said, except for the fact that I think as a group, the DDA needs to agree conceptually. Do we want the rapid to continue? And if we do want the rapid to continue, then your comments need to be passed on to our council.
well said.
So how about this? Would, I'm glad I have an eraser. If, and I'm trying to capture all of this, is the sentiment then that the DDA would like to pursue a contract with the Rapid to continue providing bus service on Route 29 through August 28th, 2023, and directs legal counsel to negotiate an appropriate agreement.
Provided legal counsel does reach an agreement.
Well, we can review the final legal agreement at the next meeting if necessary. But I think that the core issue that we need to get at is whether the DDA approves pursuing the contract.
Yeah, I guess I'll probably be in the minority, but in its current form, given its cost and the benefit, I'm for public transportation, but this specific option right now, I would vote against, and I voted against it at the bus committee. If we did vote, I don't know, I'd say no on this contract.
I didn't hear a dissent from you at the bus committee, which is why I'm a little bit surprised. I mean,
We do a formal vote, because I remember I told you
We had the
exactly.
conversation and then we circulated the recommendations in the memo and there were a
I don't know,
couple
but I remember
iterations.
did we vote? I'm telling,
Paul, whether we voted.
I never,
But I don't, I'm just trying to clarify where the dissension is coming from.
when you look at the cost and the structure of this particular service, I think that the cost far outweighs the benefit. And I think that the board, it was a wimpy move by the board to pass this entire burden to the DDA. And I think it I just don't think the DDA should be this should come on the DDA, but I understand that's just one person.
So we can't change the fact that the DDA is now fully responsible for for busing, right?
No, you just can vote. Well, you're choosing to be fully responsible.
No, but it was pushed down on us via the decision of the township board. It is what it is. So the thing is we can set parameters over this year of what a transportation system, of what we're looking for from a cost standpoint, but also from the service standpoint. This gives us the time to continue transportation. And then it also gives us the ability to take a deep dive and come up with options. Every time we meet, we learn something new. For instance, Meyer does contribute towards the bus service. And there is a model where a number of businesses could contribute to it and offset the cost of it. We may find all these other options will have pros and cons. We don't know from a cost standpoint in the current economic environment we're dealing with, the cost structure of the Rapid might be beneficial. We don't know that until we've taken the deep dive. We're looking at it at pure dollars of $200,000+ in our service and not putting in together paratransit and also go bus services and not looking at the whole picture. The whole idea is to bundle it for this DDA and make the best decision. And it gives us the time to make the appropriate decision.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, I don't think, I personally would vote no for this.
But what would be your alternative?
We look into it over the past year, but the reality, I think that it'd be interesting to see there's employees or people looking for jobs. I don't feel like it would be super detrimental to them because everywhere is hiring. So you could you can find jobs everywhere. I'm just, and then I guess the numbers don't support it. You see it's unclear. The transit's data is really confusing. It's not clear, but the majority are people not in Cascade who go to Meyer or Walmart, and not exclusively, but I'm just saying, given that, I don't think the DDA needs to be, I wouldn't do it.
I'm confused by your statement because that completely ignores the feedback that we've gotten from our business owners
See, I don't think it
who
does.
say that their employees rely on bus service so that they can get to their jobs. These are
Who?
not residents. These
Who?
are.
Because when I looked at
the survey.
I guess we interpret it differently because it was like, would your business be affected? Not at all. Like, I think we should look into getting buyback, but I think those numbers, I didn't think the survey
Here's
showed
the
an
problem.
overwhelming
Bring me back to
use.
today. If we decide at this meeting that we are not in support of extension of the bus contract, that means it stops. And so what do we tell our business owners?
We'll wait to see what they say. It's not on the DDA 100% responsible. How about Kentwood? It could go back to the board. There's lots of Walmart, all the major businesses. This is not, I mean, the DDA, it shouldn't be solely in our lap. So sometimes I feel like you have to say no. And the ITP, which is extremely well-funded, I would say no. See how it goes.
I'm speaking strictly now from a business standpoint. This, the bus service helps me zero. Would I be affected by it? No. But also as a DDA member, I feel I need to look at minorities. The minority of businesses, that can be affected significantly is 20-some% that were polled. Yes, I agree. I think this is not a good use of the money, but also at the same time, we have not come up with an alternative. And an alternative means a deep dive as far as what businesses are really affected. We need to, find out what businesses, are they all down there? The hotels and Walmart. As far as I'm concerned, is if Meyer is contributing and we're going to have another bus stop at Walmart, we need to tell Walmart, okay, you need to pony up some, else the bus service is not going to stop there. So we need to find out what businesses are affected and see if we can minimize our routes. Because I think there are locations that are underutilized that, we could cut some money. And then the other question I have, is this running on holidays? Do we really need to run it on holidays? I figure we could, save another 2-3% if you eliminated holiday service.
The alternative, I guess, that I would offer would be to say the DDA, we at this point immediately would contribute $80,000 towards, in this case, to the Rapid for transportation. What will $80,000 get us? So say then the businesses that are using employees on the bus system, they can coordinate that those employees that use the bus system have the same, regular work scheduler as much as possible. So, because before when we said, well, could we reduce the hours? In my opinion, the Rapid was pretty inflexible, and I don't think we need it every 30 minutes. So if we say, okay, from the DDA, we have an obligation, we'll contribute X amount, $80,000, what will that get us? Then that gets a little bit of a burden off our shoulders. We've still got skin in the game, and it kind of puts them in a position where, okay, let's work with them instead of just unilaterally setting every 30 minutes a route. That would be my option.
And that's certainly something to discuss as part of the plan for the next year and figuring out what the alternatives might be.
There's a lot of variables with this, right?
Yeah.
There are the people, I would say there is a large percentage of individuals who are stocking the shelves, working the restaurants, working the hotels that do not live in Cascade Township, that are supporting the services of the people who do live within and outside of the township that get to enjoy through these businesses. There is going to be an impact by us if we do make the decision not to approve this for a year in absence of any other option, right? And that we're scrambling and we come up with an imperfect one. Again, our goals, I go back to the goals of who we are as a DDA. Our goal is to allow businesses to thrive in the DDA corridor, to limit the vacancies that we can. I mean, I can go through the objectives, and we want to make sure that businesses are still doing well in this corridor. I think we owe it to the businesses and the township to make sure we have a very good plan for transportation. It's easy to say no, and once it's gone, it's gone. It's harder to come up with a very viable solution. Within the time frame we have between now and say July 1st, I don't think we're going to find a really solid outcome that's going to solve for the absence of the transit or the Rapid.
Other comments?
Yeah,
And that's how we've gotten where we are. We keep kicking that dumb old can down.
Mhm.
down the
True.
It's an
road.
expensive can.
It's an expensive can, but we haven't been able to come up with any viable options, which is why I think now that we've, put it in writing that we're going to, and it will be in the strategic plan, that we will actually have a structure in place for analyzing these options, that we're going to have our feet held to the fire to at least look
Yeah.
and see what else is out there. Because we, as part of the bus committee's work in the interim, we Googled, we looked at things, we saw contracts, but it was all very complicated and we didn't have answers to a lot of questions that we were asking about whether it would be an exact fit. So those are issues. The work has already started. There's a lot more to do. We need the time to be able to continue pursuing that.
And one of the major, if not the major step that needs to be taken is the review of the contract. If we can't come up with a good negotiations with Rapid, that makes all this discussion, all this planning.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. I move that the DDA pursue a contract with the Rapid to continue providing bus service on Route 29 through August 29, 2023. And I direct Township Council to negotiate an appropriate contract with the Rapid, which will then be presented to the DDA at the June meeting for approval.
So it'll be,
Was that support or was that a
I support the
question?
motion.
Okay. And as well, further
Yeah.
discussion,
it'll be reviewed by council prior to.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then presented to us at our June meeting. So if there are additional questions at that meeting, we can address them at that time and then formally approve the contract, which has been vetted by council for approval.
And I think it's very important to elevate concerns that you have today
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the contract. And like, we can't wait until legal just comes back. We should need to elevate that.
Agreed. Further discussion?
Yeah, does this include, so in theory, the operating days, the hours service frequency. In theory, that's kind of,
I've directed, my motion contemplates that legal counsel will negotiate an appropriate contract.
yeah, that was good, Jen, that was
By
tricky.
such and such a date,
To be presented to the DDA
by such and such a date, or
at the June meeting.
there you go.
That's why I had to write it out. It's
And
long.
that would, so could we authorize our legal counsel to pursue other possible options as far as frequency, hours and operating days?
I feel that my motion is pretty open in that it just
We're gonna get-
asks council to negotiate an appropriate contract with the Rapid.
We don't want to get them too deeply involved because they do have a tendency to go off on tangents.
Now,
Which one? Oh, yeah, the
attorneys in general, I'll try not to take that terribly personally. I feel attacked.
I love every attorney I've met. Well.
Yeah, I know that can't be correct. Rick,
Your motion is one thing I think we need to vote on,
yes,
but also as a group, if we are wanting to change hours of operation or costs or, I think as a group, we should also be voting on that
I
too.
think that's the next step.
Yes.
We're not gonna
Okay.
make any headway on that tonight. Other comments, questions?
I love attorneys.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Some.
Liar. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nice
You
job.
worded your motion so well. I support the motion as
Appreciate that.
stated.
Nice
All right,
job.
unanimously approved. Thank you.
Nice job.
I would encourage everyone who has questions or concerns about the wording of the contract to articulate those concerns to Grace, and she will forward them to legal counsel. And
In writing is best because then I could just hit
right,
forward.
send her an email.
And then email to this group too.
Right, sure.
Yes.
Yes, certainly.
Transparency
Certainly,
shared.
yes.
Where our minds are going.
I agree. And I'm going to plead with all of you, if you have ideas as we move down the road into analyzing options, please share because people aren't. And so the members of the bus committee have been kind of doing our own research to to figure this out. And I mean, there are a million options out there and none of the ones that we really identified were a cookie cutter solution. So forward all ideas to us as we embark upon this process. So
Cascade is not the only island.
I shouldn't say we haven't gotten any. We've gotten, Sandra's emailed some.
Yeah, you've got.
She
okay,
did.
we talked
all right.
But I mean, look, before our bus committee meetings, I mean,
Have we checked with Gainesville or any place else and say,
I
by the
mean,
way, how do you handle your
so
situation?
Traverse City has a whole plan and they've got, they went through a whole transportation study, like a strategic plan. They went very deep. I'm not suggesting we need to do that, but they ended up with kind of a hybrid-ish approach with a couple different components. Downtown Grand Rapids, not comparing apples and oranges, but they have a lot of different components. And I suspect that we will land on a plan that has a couple different components, but we need to identify what those are first.
I think a little hardball negotiations wouldn't necessarily be bad. So I guess I'm just $80,000. What does it get us?
They're
Com-
not
and then-
used to it, so yes.
Yeah, the Rapid is used to getting what it wants.
Well,
So they've gotten away with it.
the law of supply and demand. I mean,
They've
that's.
gotten away with it.
But no, literally, that would be my vote. Here's 80 grand from the DDA. Now go look at the businesses. What's it worth to you guys?
Well, that might cause more problems than it solves for some, but we can debate that until it dies. I mean, my God, we're gonna have a lot of conversation about the specifics of what the schedule and the services are going to look like. And part of what is included in our marching orders and our plan is to closely engage both our residents and our business owners with that process so that they can tell us how they feel about it. Is this something that they really need? Is it something that they want? And what kind of value do they ascribe to it? So that it isn't just us making these decisions in a vacuum. We have that input. from them.
100%.
And we're also trying to get to a path where it's financially viable for the long term.
Right,
And
yes.
long term could be 5-10 years as the world is changing around us, but that's the goal, that it's something we could support the community and something we can financially support consistently.
We're paying for a portion of their overhead and as we should, but we want to make certain that if we do continue down this route, that we get the absolute best contract possible.
Agreed.
And part of it, I guess, was thinking to force a change in my mind, because I think there's a big value in public transportation, even if it's not used as much as it could be, especially in Cascade. I think we do have an obligation, but I just think that the issue needs to be.
Sandra, wasn't our original contract, what, 350, 380,000 when we originally started with the service?
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
yes.
because I agree with your comments, but I also wanted you to realize is that we have reduced this by at least 50%.
But that was, yes, and it
Good
wasn't that
start.
when
That's a good start.
I had a meeting with Ben and the Rapid service and then all of a sudden they switched it from, I can't remember, they were charging the
The hourly
township.
model versus the revenue.
Yeah, they
model.
were charging you guys as if you got the bus, started it up and drove it from there to Cascade, when the reality is all it was extending it. So as soon as they felt a little heat, they turned it, they said, okay, well, we'll charge you just for revenue hour.
And
so
we
a
have
little
made
heat-
changes to the schedule too.
But I'm just saying
Oh,
that,
yeah.
that reduction was long overdue, and that was the result of a conversation a phone conversation.
The last thing I'll say on
that I
it
had with
myself is that we're making a lot of comments without having all the information, meaning that we may, this has happened to me in my career. Once you take a deep dive, you may find that the transit is the best value for service hours and everything that we need once we break it down, or we may find there's a huge cost savings by doing this hybrid model. Until we know that information, we're speculating.
We are.
So let's get to what the facts are, make the best decision for the businesses in the DDA in our township. That's kind of, it's easy to say, it's not our thing, let's get the information.
But we're doing it now.
We are.
Correct, and we have a plan to get to where we're at instead of kicking the can down the road. That ends. We have a plan.
I
If you
think
step
you're-
on the can, it doesn't go as far.
No, you're right.
Well, and
True.
maybe, and revenue hours are really easy to calculate. It makes sense. The rapid's already set up in that way. What's frustrating, I think, is that the last time when that was mentioned, reducing the amount of revenue hours, they came back with such a small reduction where, I mean, still every 30 minutes. So it just seems like it's such an easy modification. Just give us less revenue hours. That means
Well, that
sometimes
is-
you don't come into Cascade.
That's certainly something that would be within the scope of my motion that council could include in his negotiations. And if unsuccessful, it's something that we can explore going forward.
Steve, you have something to say, because I
Well,
think you've
no,
been
well,
trying. to
yeah, no,
jump
I
in.
mean, just hearing what Grace just said with that, you know, and as you talk about reducing those revenue hours from every half hour to an hour and trying to find that balance or that sweet spot to where as a business owner, if I was dependent upon that and the supplier of that transportation where my employees came to me and said, hey, this is what we're looking at doing. We're going from every half hour to every hour. You may need to modify how you schedule your people. But we just wanted to let you know that because we're not seeing the amount of people that for every half hour, it's just not cost effective. And so those are the things that as a board, and it would be wonderful to have business people and residents come in here and share their points of view too.
Yes.
I know
Agreed.
you say you hear a lot. I don't know what a lot is. I hear people tell me,
Yeah, that
I hear a lot
have-
and that's 2 or 3, but that's what resonates. And you
Mhm.
have those same conversations possibly with other people. And it's like, it feels like it's always there. So I know we did our survey. I know we got some feedback, but there may be some give and take if we have to look at this model and look at those times of taking the bus. And I know as again, on the committee, we were looking at some alternative things. Yeah, it's tough that it gets pushed. I think we got somebody on Zoom that may want to speak.
Yes. Max, bless your heart, you're still with us.
Still with you.
Okay,
So, yeah, I didn't necessarily have anything, but I just want to talk about next steps. And I understand from your motion that you're going to be directing this to your legal counsel and then sort of authorizing your legal counsel to engage in contract negotiations with our agency. Did I kind of phrase that correctly? Did I capture that?
you did, yes.
Okay, great. So I'm just looking ahead at future meeting schedules and correct me if I'm wrong, but your next meeting is going to be June 21st.
Correct.
That seems right. Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. Sandra.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you guys
Okay, I
have
just-
that on your calendar? For some reason, it's never, is there like a,
It was sent out, when we approved the meeting. I don't think that we have a placeholder email, but.
could
it
we
was-
do that? Could we get a placeholder email?
I can send a meeting invite.
Okay, thanks.
November 16th, 2021, Sandra sent out a.
For all the meetings?
Yeah.
So I just
They
must
weren't
have, I messed
calendar
it up.
appointments. It was just a list of the meetings.
I think she was
Oh.
trying to remind me. I don't know.
Can we do it in the form where you hit accept and then it shows up every
I can.
automatic? Thank you. That's helpful.
And
So
Max,
I-
will you be available to join us at that meeting as well?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy. I do think though, just given our upcoming deadlines and the lead times that we need to write schedules and get the schedules rostered and put into pieces of work that our operators can sign up for, definitely that meeting has to be a final decision on a contract. So what's going to have to happen is by the end of that meeting, it'll have to be like a yes or no decision. And if there's a yes, then there's a, signatures on a dotted line. I think that's kind of what we're coming up in terms of just deadlines for having a decision.
Understood. All right. Thanks, everybody. That was a good conversation.
Mhm.
Let's move on to Article 8, which is to discuss the median islands in Centennial Park. Thank you.
Thanks, you
again.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
We missed Article 7.
We did. Oh, excuse me.
You're trying to speed.
I'm
things
so
up.
blind. I was trying to skip forward. Article 7, discuss and consider DDA sponsorship to the Cascade Metro Cruise warm-up event.
Yeah, so
It's that time
it's
again.
that time again. The 2021 event came back with a bang. It bounced back. Great turnout of cars, of people. It was very hot that day, but we had a great turnout. So DDA has always been a great partner in the past and supporter of this event. This year, we're requesting $7,000. We knocked that down a little bit from last year. We're not doing a lot of sponsorship asks again this year just because of COVID and the business climate, but I have heard from a couple businesses that they'd be willing to contribute. So we're requesting $7,000.
Any questions? Comments? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to support the Cascade Metro Cruise with
Second,
contribution of $7,000.
second.
Further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, very good.
That event's a blast.
It
Thank
is.
I don't
It's a
go
lot
to
of
it,
fun.
it's a blast.
It's a lot of fun. Now we're at Article 8. Discuss median islands, Centennial Park.
So this,
So it's gonna be,
I'm not smart enough.
okay, so you're looking for the paperwork, so it's gonna be down.
Sure,
Little tutorage here, I'm
no
sorry.
all
problem,
right.
no problem. So the median islands in Centennial Park, this was
I
a
knew that.
2018 discussion at the DDA when we were talking about future projects. And we were talking about future projects in Centennial Park, specifically the sidewalk loop on Orchard Vista, as well as streetlights in that area. The Kent County Road Commission did inform us at that time that they were doing some street improvements in the Centennial Park area in what was supposed to be 2019, 2020 timeframe. They were going to repave those roads in there and suggested that if the DDA was considering any road improvements, the best time would be to partner with them when they were doing the road work. So we did back in 2008, I believe, we partnered with the Centennial Business Park. We did a master plan with them. And after review of that master plan and in an attempt to provide some traffic calming measures, the DDA voted to construct the median islands at the entrances of the park, which would have been Foremost Drive and 28th Street, Charlevoix, and 28th Street and Lucerne and 28th Street. Inside the park, the master plan provided for roundabouts throughout the park. And then narrowed traffic lanes throughout the park also to help with traffic calming. Those enhancements were exchanged for a few interior median islands, and there's 2 on Charlevoix at Tahoe, and there's 2 on Foremost Drive at Orchard Vista area. So I did include those pages in the master from the master plan in the packet tonight showing those improvements. This is just for information tonight. There's no action on this item, but it's just strictly information.
Thank you, Sandra. I asked that it be just for, I don't mean to be critical or anything. I just asked that you put it on the agenda item because I think there could be better communication. The members who are on the DDA, I haven't, like, the more communication, the better on all projects. So, and I saw with the possible property purchase with the Tuffy building, just having seen both sides, I feel like that the DDA could benefit from hearing more feedback from board, residents, everything. The more feedback, the better for all of us who are trying to do a good job on the DDA. And I will say a lot, meaning a lot, overwhelmingly negative feedback on these medians from the fire department, from Kent County Road Commission, from our buildings and grounds, the residents who live back in the condos. One of them's our chair of the Parks Committee. Just residents who've gone through, and it's funny because unsolicited, they look nice or could look nice. And then just really, they get hit all the time. And there's no plantings in them right now. So I don't know if we have a plan to replace them with some height, but it's been a huge, so anyways, overwhelmingly negative feedback that goes to the supervisor on those. Not meant at all as a criticism of any of the DDA in any way.
But that you're getting phone calls or emails or
Just
in
you-
conversation with
Fire
the
department, yeah.
and things
Kent
like
County
that.
Road Commission. Yeah,
Okay. So I have one question on these projects. Do we go back and see how well they're working? So if it was for traffic calming, then, you know, there's usually some criteria about what do we mean by traffic calming? And then do we go back and say, did it work? You know, was that a good use of funds and, you know, plan and that sort of thing to go back? Because if we don't, so I'll let you answer that question first.
No, for the most part,
okay.
we do not.
If we don't, then we don't really have a good understanding for any project, not just this one, but as we were talking about it, it occurred to me, how do we know if we think these are improvements, but we don't go back and have some
Well,
vehicle to, you know,
I think what you're asking is just like, what is our process from A, the decision, and B, the post follow-up? It's like an after action review.
exactly.
Right.
Simply put, what are your goals and objectives
Yep.
first
Yep.
and clearly stated? And then the after action review, you decide what that time is on major initiatives.
Mhm.
Like, do you need to do that for the Metro Cruise? Probably not. Do you need to do it where we've invested substantial money?
Mhm.
Yes. And what you may find is you're getting a lot of feedback. I'm guessing here, but did we actually achieve the goal that we originally hit? We actually might find that we were hugely successful of what that objective is, but in the absence of it not being written down, I guess we could research it. It's hard to tell, was it a good decision or a bad decision? We just own what the feedback is today.
the more feedback, the more helpful it is. going
So
forward.
it sounds like we need to, how we operate needs to be formalized in the sense of when it's a project of X, we clearly state objectives, log those objectives, and then we clearly state the date where we do the after action review
Right.
to judge our success rate.
There should be metrics around
Mhm.
all of this.
I love that idea. And I'd love to see this baked into when we come up with our strategic plan, that we have those processes documented and in place. For this specific issue, I think it would be helpful to have Sandra follow up with the Cascade Business Park Association, if I'm getting that name correct. And the fire department, since Grace brought them out, and see what those concerns might be and see if they've experienced the traffic calming that the medians were intended to provide.
The township is back there on Tahoe and I just don't, there's never any, there's no need to, there's not enough traffic to calm.
That's because it's like I just had a flashback to my dad stopping the taking of his high blood pressure meds because he said, my blood pressure is fine now. It's like, because you're taking the meds, your blood pressure is
The
fine.
medians aren't
Medians
at
are there,
all.
and so they're,
No, the medians aren't at all calming. That's not, I don't think so.
But
don't know.
but I think
At
this is,
all.
we can debate this until we're.
We don't
blue
know.
in
We need the
face,
data.
I'm
but
talking volume of traffic. It's minimal.
What we don't know, if this was 2008, there are a lot of vacant buildings back there. That could have been what we thought was going to be the epicenter of a hybrid between corporations and residents. And in order for the two to live together, we had to calm the traffic. And we had substantial information to say that large corporations were going to move into some of those big buildings back there.
Maybe we
or
don't
were
know.
there. That's 2008. And so we just know the result of it. And that's the.
so let's
process we're trying to
benchmark
get
this
to.
for a future meeting where you can provide us with an update from the, I don't know that you need to go business owner to business owner, but start with the association
Right.
and the fire department and see what they have to say. If you need to broaden that and you need more time, then just let us know.
And the lack of plantings is an issue that should be addressed
Yeah.
because it's dangerous when there was a lot of snow. They get hit all the time.
So we can't put height in there, unfortunately. The road commission won't
Mhm.
let us put
It's gotta be low.
height in there.
How could you get like 2 feet or no?
Oh, we'll get with them and find out what their stipulation is, but I mean, I think some height would be better, but we just can't do height, so we will, they like the low lying, plantings.
Because right now
So-
it looks like mostly dirt.
Their buildings and grounds needs to replant some plants in there, so.
'Tis the
yeah.
season. Everything's a bloom. I do want to circle back to something else that you said.
Buildings and
Grace.
grounds isn't going to do that on their own though. They need direction. They're not
Jim and
gonna-
I talked about it the other day, so. about the medians and some plantings, so.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe there
we'll
just
get 'em.
needs to be a long-term, there's a plan with a schedule that says every year on these dates,
Mhm.
kind of like we've done on Cascade Road with the median there, the plantings and then the pots and, that there's a very sort of rigorous schedule on when those things are done.
Does the
So that-
association have a role in that at all? The median plantings or not
We
so
really
much?
don't.
Okay.
no.
That might be another topic to raise with them. It
Mhm.
would be nice to get some buy-in from them.
Yeah,
Right.
and the median islands on Foremost actually look pretty good. Those plantings are pretty stable in there. I think it's the two on Charlevoix. So I'll talk with Jim further on that, so.
So you've mentioned a couple times the need for additional communication between the DDA and the board, and I agree 1,000%. And it kind of brings me back to what I feel are repeated requests to have that joint meeting as a more, stratospheric collaboration. We used to do it and we don't, and we need to. So I'm making a formal request. I mean, you're on the board.
Yeah, go for it. I have no
But
problem with it.
You are on the DDA and you're on the township board, so I'm asking you to communicate with the board that the DDA would
Sandra,
like.
please schedule a joint meeting for the board and the DDA.
Okay,
And we agreed tonight that we're gonna
Yeah.
do it twice a year, so we're
right. We're on the right path. I
Twice
just-
a year, formal meetings with the DDA and the board.
And to try to help us be aware of things going on with the trustees, I've asked Sandra to include approved minutes. I mean, everybody probably, either attends or goes online and looks at them, but as a regular occurrence, they will now also be attached to as part of our meeting packet. So I don't have any specific items to discuss, but you'll see that it's included from time to time, just for informational purposes. Okay, any other conversation about the median islands before we move on? All right, discuss Article 9, discuss tree planting grants and opportunities.
So I believe this came up at a township board meeting. No?
No, I was going to ask you about your memo, where that came from,
Oh,
because that
I-
wasn't
I thought it was
accurate.
in the board member comments that they had talked about, or somebody had threw out the idea of doing more tree plantings.
Yeah, but that was totally separate. That was just John Shipley mentioning looking into a program with residents.
Okay,
Um,
my mistake. I
I
apologize.
thought that
Um,
the only way I became aware of it was from your email.
Yeah, that's
so I
it.
don't
So at the
remember how-
Parks Committee, they brought up this grant one-to-one match with, is this one consumers or
This
DTE?
is DTE.
Okay, so then consumers has one also, and I thought it looked good. So at the Parks Committee, when I first saw it, so I sent it to you and asked to put it on the agenda.
I haven't seen the consumers one. I
Or
believe
sorry,
it was
whichever one this
DTE.
is.
Yeah, I believe it was DTE. So, okay, my apologies. I had bad information there. So this is about, there's information in your packet tonight about the DTE Energy Foundation. They have a tree planting grant program. As Grace said, provide a one-to-one match up to $4,000 for planting trees near community streets and in public spaces. We did apply for this grant a number of years ago to replace the ash trees out here in the library parking islands. So it's something that we are somewhat familiar with, but we have had to remove some dead trees along 28th Street between Old 28th and Walgreens a few years ago. And then just randomly throughout the district, we've had trees that have been removed for redevelopment, trees that have died. We've had issues with power lines. So there are probably some spots where we could fill in some with some trees. So again, the packet is in your, or the information's in your packet. I did put a very rough sketch. I know it's not great of irrigation that we have in the DDA district, mostly just in the village area and really just in that triangle, 28th Street to Cascade Road, Old 28th Street area. That's what the blue lines on this map represent. So irrigation in this area, any other areas throughout the district, it's very likely that businesses have irrigation out in the road right away area. So this grant is the deadline is June 17 for applications for this grant, so.
So I'm in favor of pursuing. Steve?
I'm in favor of pursuing it. I guess a couple questions with it. One is, this is where the irrigation is, but, and maybe you had mentioned it, that there was some trees removed, I think you said from 28th Street. So those would be the first places that we'd be taking a look at as far as replacing. And then just again, as a business owner, just, sometimes trees are not our best friends.
I've
Okay.
heard that.
So just so that we're not, oh, here's a nice spot, let's plan it, and not think it all the way through and say, how is this going to impact signage? How is it going to impact people to visibly see this business? Because it's,
Right.
yeah,
It's a really
in
good
5
point.
years or 10 years, they're going to be knocking on the door and saying, who in the heck? I was waiting for that tree to die. I've been killing it for the last 5 years. I finally got rid of it. Now
Now it's on record.
Yeah.
We have heard that from business owners, so.
So I just
Very
throw that out
valid
there
point.
as caution.
Coordinate with.
Yeah.
Is it specifically trees or could we plant, 3-4 foot high bushes?
We do have some parameters in here. If they're balled or burlap, bare root, containerized, potted, so there are some
Yeah.
parameters in here that we can seedlings. I mean, we can start really small if you want.
I'll
not-
be dead by then.
Let's,
so-
that'll be,
We'll do those in front of Steve's place. So we can look at that. Obviously, we'll have to move fairly quickly on this,
Yeah.
so that we can make that June 17th
Mhm.
deadline, so.
I think it's perfectly aligned with us, with the parameters that Steve just put out, that we're known for our natural beauty in the township. So it seems like a no-brainer.
would you like to make a motion?
Motion to support the initiative, the grant matching.
I'll
I sec-
second. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Further conversation?
Who, yes, so just specifically then, who would complete the grant?
Sandra, with support of township staff and or council if necessary. I don't know that council is really involved in grant applications, but it does not need to come back to this board. It typically does not.
And so since it's a 1-to-1, up to 4,000, we would fund $4,000 out of our budget
Right.
for this.
And get $8,000 of trees.
Right, now we're going to have to make sure we have locations
I
for
think we can find
for
I've been looking.
$8,000 worth of trees, but,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay.
Just get big trees.
Yeah, we could get nice,
Right.
yeah,
Within the parameters, of course, and not
Right.
blocking any signage.
maybe like giant Norway pines right in front of Culver's.
That would
I'm
be
already-
interesting. Giant shrubbery.
I'm already
Or 5.
killing some trees. No.
All right. Yeah, right. He's out there in the middle of the night.
Maybe we could create a wall.
Further questions? Right, a wall.
I'm joking.
All right, all in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? All right, very good. Article 10, review chapter 8 of the zoning ordinance regarding the village design review committee.
So I didn't put a memo with this, I just put the information in the packet. The Village Design Review Committee is a group that has rarely gotten together, to be honest with you. And really their sole purpose is if you have, or if there is a developer that submits a project for the B1, kind of the village business district, and that developer wants to make modifications to all the zoning requirements that are listed in that chapter, they would then have to come before this Village Design Review Committee. As you can see, it's township appointed committee. It's made up of 5 residents and then at least 1 member of the Township Board, Planning Commission, DDA, and Zoning Board of Appeals.
What's the history? Michelle had mentioned seeing something like this and I just was curious. So that's why I asked for the background and I don't know if this is what she had seen because it came from the zoning ordinance, but
Yeah, I didn't think it was in the zoning. But is there something in the TIF plan as well about this? That specifically addresses, I went back to the TIF plan and then I couldn't find it,
was
so I
no,
thought.
I
it was-
emailed you, I found it somewhere, but where was it? It wasn't this. It was an architectural design committee.
yeah,
But
and I
now I can't
forget.
remember where it was, but it wasn't the TIF plan.
Yeah, that's probably what I saw wherever. it was.
Architectural Design Committee.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I think Centennial
That was
Park
it.
may have an
I think that might
architectural
have been it.
design, and
Oh,
then
no.
Meadowbrook Business
No,
Park
because,
has one.
and then you and I talked a little bit, because I asked you some
About
questions
this
about
one.
the,
Right,
and because you were, the discussion was that it was specific to the village area
right.
and, making modifications, and it was in a very specific time that this was formed for kind of a specific reason.
So they made some amendments to the zoning ordinance for the B1 district. And at that time, they thought, and forgive me, I can't remember all the steps in the history, but if they kind of made some stringent requirements down in the village. They wanted things to look a certain way. And so if anybody wanted to make any modifications, they felt that that developer should go through this design review process, have that committee look at those modifications, see if it still fits, see if it doesn't fit, and then go back to the planning commission for approval.
Does this committee exist?
Yeah, no, I didn't even know about it. When was that, Sandra?
Look, Steve, remember,
It's,
Steve knows something.
It's been
He's-
around for, it's been around for a while.
Yeah, as a business
but-
owner and the,
Have an opinion.
But it hasn't met for quite
Yeah.
some time. There really, we haven't had any
I
applications
just
where there's
didn't know
been
it
any.
existed and what the story was with it. So
Yeah.
it's been around.
I must
It's been
hear what
around for a
Steve has
while.
to say.
I can't,
Yeah.
10, 12 years perhaps.
What prompted the formation of
The
this?
changes to the zoning ordinance, the more stringent requirements, if you will, in the village area, wanting to redevelop that to make the businesses, be closer to the side, no parking in front, certain aesthetic requirements. And so if there was any modification from those requirements in the zoning ordinance, they wanted a review committee to look at those before anything was approved. So.
Do business owners remember that change or strict or? you
No.
guys
I
remember?
have to
Granted,
know.
granted, this was down in the village, so.
Yeah, right.
So what's the zoning board of appeals for?
Thank
then?
you.
Yeah.
What is the
To
planning
me,
commission for? What- I mean,
this committee should be irrelevant if we have a zoning board of appeals, because
Steal your thunder.
my perspective, that's their job.
Right. Why do I have to, one more level of government that I gotta go to before,
Mhm.
I would not want to make a change. You're not making it inviting for me to be a business in the village if I have to go to meet the three of you and then come to meet the three of you to get the same approval on what I need.
Yeah. it's-
So I don't know where we're going with this, but.
Right. So why are we talking
So
about
the
this?
review, the review, it says in here, the review is mandatory for all projects requesting modification. Compliance with the recommendations is voluntary.
What the
So
heck?
one of the things.
May I
that-
make a motion?
I
No,
Make a-
I mean,
Absolve this committee.
Yeah, exactly.
Within the DDA.
This is a
Yeah,
planning commission.
This is a planning
This
commission.
is a zoning, so this came
Yeah.
from our zoning
This
ordinance.
is, right, from the zoning.
I think
ordinance.
it's fine. Okay, hang on, bring it down. It's
Yeah.
been a long meeting. Let's try
No,
to
no,
maintain
it-
some order. I'm gonna, here we go. Yes.
I think it's fine if we want to, because I hear the pain, I understand. I do think that then, as we go forward with this township strategic plan, with the development of an upper and lower village, whatever, and whatever that starts becoming from a development standpoint, we need to have some kind of architectural design standards in place so that we don't get a real dichotomy of styles within, if we're going to do this, then let's be mindful about how we go down that path and create something that is really aesthetically beautiful and pleasing to everybody, the residents, this board, the township, everybody.
You want to put that on the shelf and go there when down the road sometime?
Well, it's a planning commission. I mean, I don't know what the DDA
And,
can do about that.
and this
really.
was in lieu of them going to the zoning board. I believe the impetus was we would get the plan, we would see that modifications were being considered. It would go to this review committee. They would kind of talk about it and hash it out, and then it would go to the planning commission. They would not then also go to the zoning board. So it was in lieu of going to the zoning board
Yeah.
of appeals.
Got
So that
it.
makes
So
sense.
oftentimes these are separate arms that are connected to the planning commission, right? And it's basically an architectural review or design review to help the planning commission because they don't have the resources within the commission themselves.
That
So
makes
it's
sense.
oftentimes- okay.
That, yeah.
That makes sense. This was just an informational item. Yes?
Yeah.
You look like you have another.
You say aesthetically pleasing. Unfortunately, we're going to need to have something in writing then.
Right.
And follow that plan, because what is pleasing to you and what's pleasing to me
Right.
could be night and day.
That's why standards are created, right? That there's agreement of what that means, and that's what's in the standard.
Yeah, I thought I was curious if it came from the DDA or where it came from. I hadn't seen it or heard of it.
Well,
And then
some-
what kind of made me think of it was the Tommy's Car Wash. Just, I guess, what you allow with how close that gets to the village area, that kind of stuff. Just curious.
I think the 28th Street corridor is the 28th Street corridor. It's become developed in such a way that it is what it is, whether, I mean, I'm ambivalent about it in some ways, but on the other hand, I mean, I like going to Culver's and having it close to my house. So it's kind of having the best of both worlds. If we have this village area that has a little different feel and, offers different things, but then we have the convenience of what we already have and are continuing to add to on the 28th Street corridor up that way. That offers us the convenience of, I want to go get my car washed up there and I want to go have a butter burger at Culver's.
So to a certain degree, as we talk about that aspect, as far as standards, so to a certain degree, did the new renovation with the Starbucks, Sheldon and so forth, in my mind,
Yeah.
they have now somewhat set that standard of, I guess, I'm just gonna say like a modern look for the
Yeah.
village.
But that never went through this
About to say, did
review.
they go through
didn't,
this
yeah.
review?
I don't
It
want them
did
to
not.
set, I don't want them to set the standard, not that it's bad, but I don't want to.
Right,
So-
but that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, so you have a vision in your mind of, and I don't know if it's gonna look like the quaint little community. I don't know
I
what.
don't know what that is.
Right,
I just
right,
would
yeah.
like it to be cohesive. That's
I-
really.
I-
That's a fair
I
point.
agree, I agree.
That's it.
So
agree.
That's
I
all.
agree, it's
I-
something to consider as part of the planning for the village. And I'm assuming, although I can't remember, that it'll be baked into part of what,
Plan.
the strategic plan. You're on the advisory committee, so
Well.
make it
that-
so.
It's in here. So if you look, it's in this
Oh, got it.
architecture. It's in here.
Okay, good.
Where's the B1 district end?
Ooh, good question, Rick.
Thornhills area.
So,
Okay.
so
So
28th Street. to
basically,
Thornhill.
when we're talking the downtown or upper village, lower village, is the B1 district. Is that correct?
Well,
I
that's
think when we're-
that's a more complicated
Yeah.
question than you realize, I think, right? I mean,
I think initially when those terms came up, it was kind of the Tuffy and then doctor's office down below on the river.
And that's B1, isn't it?
That's B1, correct, yeah.
And that goes up to Thornhills
Mhm.
by D&W.
And,
So down Cascade Road and then.
and I'm
28th
B1.
Street.
I'm the end of
You
B1.
are correct. Right, you're in the B1.
Do you want us to shave you off so that you don't?
No,
get-
no, I'm fine.
just don't make any changes. Further conversation or questions about this zoning ordinance?
Thank you for discussing it.
Happy to. All right, Article 11, other business. Next meeting, June 21st.
Yes, June 21st.
So if you have agenda items, please get them to Sandra. We will obviously be talking about the bus again. Probably not strategic planning. I'd be surprised if we made some significant progress unless there's.
We can put it on the agenda.
I'd
and
like
if
to
the-
have an update on our agenda, maybe put an update on the agenda so that we can debrief after our joint meeting, because hopefully that'll happen before our next DDA meeting.
I have another business.
Yes.
Just to throw it out there, and it came up at the strategic planning committee meeting. You guys may be aware of it. I just didn't know, but so legally, people there's been a lot, overwhelmingly, the public seems to be a pedestrian bike friendly village area connectivity. Specifically, there's been a lot of complaints about the bridge over the Thornapple River on Cascade, wanting it to be more safe for bicyclists, pedestrians. So, and then at the strategic planning streetscape safety meeting, I talked to Tim Hogsma. He's like the safety engineer at the road commission, and was asking him about that. And he said, he pulled up a picture of, there's a bridge, I think by Plainfield. I should know what it is, but basically our bridge is pretty structurally sound, not that old. So he said, well, maybe we could put like an arm, you just kind of add it. So it makes it. So on a tangent, it came up at the strategic planning meeting that DDA funds can be used outside legally, technically outside of the district, as long as the project benefits businesses within the district. So the bridge came to mind, and I just thought I would bring it up. And I didn't know that legally that was an option.
Neither did I. I mean, I think I would probably want an opinion from.
We got one.
Yeah.
We got one.
You did?
Yeah.
And then he said to look at the TIF plan. So I'll have to look at the language of the TIF plan.
Well, if we're redoing the TIF plan, then I mean, we look at the TIF plan.
Yeah.
but
So I just
it's-
wanted to bring that up as a
Gotcha.
possible, if you guys want to get like favorite committee of the,
I think it's-
that would be the project I would choose.
I think it's certainly tangent to, as we start getting into the planning for, the village and the opportunity to be able to touch those things that are right on the boundary that make a big impact would be, then we'd want to include that as part of our plan, right?
Just a possibility. What do you
Does
guys
that
think
fall
about
into
it?
the township plan at all, though? I mean, now knowing that it's available, could that,
I think the
not that I'm
township's
trying
got to
to
look
push
at it.
that, but
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like the
Oh.
library covered their little space, so that's great because it frees up more funds, and the township, the township's gonna have to look at it just
Right.
based on, yeah.
Feedback.
So if the DDA doesn't want to,
I'm just, no.
We can add it to the list.
if
of
the DDA would
things to
rather
talk
fund the
about.
rapid, that's the DDA's call.
Okay.
We already had, ouch.
No, I just.
Harsh words, Madam Supervisor.
Only harsh if it strikes the right
Well,
chord.
and it's even more reason to have these joint meetings so that we can have these conversations.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is it you say?
So-
Corky? Consensus.
Just a
right.
point, we don't have another strategic steering committee meeting until June 24th.
Wow.
And
Maybe because there are so many other meetings in between now and
yeah,
then.
and there's
Yeah.
other things going on and because it has to do with the fact that we wouldn't be launching the next survey until like June 13th. I'll confirm that just so that whether we need to have an update or not, there may be something to update or there may not be.
If you could let me know
I
also,
will.
because it's on the calendar.
I will.
So,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Maybe this is a question, and I'm sure for the strategic advisors. Is there are you guys keeping a track record of, all these things that are going on? And what that means is that when we finally do put a shovel to dirt, something does get implemented along the way, and the community, whoever comes back and says, well, this was stupid. Why did we do that?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, no.
No.
Exactly,
Go back to
yes.
2020.
100%.
It's
Yeah,
all
okay.
documented.
Okay.
Yes.
It's all
And
documented.
I'll write it in blood. I'll sign it in blood.
Yeah.
because it will happen.
Yep,
Yes,
exactly.
exactly,
So I
yes.
just want to make sure.
And we've
that- because
talked about
things
that.
will change
No,
in
no.
5 years.
Uh,
Priorities are
really-
going to change for people.
Really
and
good
it's like,
question, Steve.
we can't keep
And
up
we've
with.
talked about that in meetings and saying, you know, the whole point of going through all of this
Which has been kind of
was to
long.
have the data
Mhm.
that we could go back to and say, here's all the survey data. This is what you said, or maybe you didn't, but you had your opportunity, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, to respond.
But it all again comes back down to the process.
Yeah.
Every
Yes.
initiative we
Right.
do, we do a quick executive summary,
Right.
followed by objectives are included in that, and then the after action review. Did we hit the mark? Then here's the document.
Fantastic,
So-
yes,
And
that's
it's
on
just-
staff to do.
It's just turnkey. Everything we do here and the township, it's in our best interest, or
Right.
else we're talking about 2008 and Centennial Park.
So
Why?
McKenna
Right,
should do,
it hasn't been talked about before.
so McKenna should be doing
Not
a
since
project
2008.
closeout for this that has all of the all of the document, everything put together. So we basically, the township has that. That should be on their list as a,
100%,
as a
agreed.
project closeout.
And I think my recommendation is we standardize the form as opposed to each time you just do it and it turns into a doctoral dissertation
Right.
paper. It's like executive summary, it's a couple
Right.
pages, and it's the same format you'll see each and every time.
But I think it is also important to retain on some level the data. So that if someone
Totally
needs to go,
agree.
back, yeah, you don't want to purge.
No,
that.
you don't, but this is,
Yeah,
here's the easy
agreed,
reading, and if
agreed.
you want to go a mile deep and
Then
wide, have at it.
Fun.
Exactly.
Other business?
All searchable.
Yep.
Yeah.
No other business? All right, well, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
I would love to make a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
I second.
I
it.
second.
I beat
Support
you
for that
to it.
motion, all in
Thanks, you
favor?
guys.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, thanks very much, everyone. Meeting
Thank
adjourned.
you.
Long meeting, but productive.
Nice meeting.
Yes, I think it's good to have a little conversation.
That's right.
Yes.
Hey, a little healthy
I think
debate.